So people aren't usually looking for a specific brand. They're looking more for tips, ideas, inspiration, which is why Pinterest is a little bit of a wide open playing field for brands that haven't spent decades or millions on brand awareness. They can still be found on the platform.
Amazing, right?
Alisa Meredith, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Steve Brown, I'm happy to be here.
So I'm looking forward to this conversation because Pinterest.
Yes.
Pinterest, you are an expert in Pinterest. Tailwind is your company and you're a Pinterest marketing specialist. Why did you decide to plant your flag here?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I started out doing some web design and development, and then I got into social media, and then I got into inbound marketing. And then this thing called Pinterest appeared, and I found I was using it for myself. I was saving articles so that I could read them later, which I hardly ever did, but they were there if I wanted to. And I started to think, okay, I'm using this. How would you use this if you were a business owner? So I started to think about that, and I wrote a little ebook about it, mostly for my own learning. But it got a little bit of attention, which brought me my first client. And then I was just hooked because I could see how much traffic Pinterest was driving. And then I could see how many leads Pinterest was driving compared to everything else. It was just a major powerhouse. And I thought, this is where I want to be. I want to be where the results are. And then Social Media Examiner approached me about doing a class on Pinterest advertising. I had never run an ad for Pinterest, but I said, sure. It's not something you can't figure out. So that kind of became my specialty for several years. And then about 4 years ago, I joined the team at Tailwind. It was just a perfect fit because of the focus on Pinterest marketing, and we had run into each other along the way and done some co-marketing together. So that's kind of how I got here.
So tell us about Tailwind. I've been in this industry for years and have never really gotten over into the Pinterest world. So I'm fascinated by it. Tell us about Tailwind and why it's so important, and what do they do for businesses?
Yeah, so it's changing and it's evolving, right? As a lot of businesses are diversifying, so are we. So yes, we have a great Pinterest product, but it's really starting to all integrate. So you can now create, schedule, and optimize your content for Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook, with Facebook scheduling coming soon. That's all in beta, but the point is we're a really great tool to allow you to make images that are automatically customized for your brand, for your industry, and get them out. We're trying to automate the hard parts of marketing and design so that you can spend more time doing the things that really have to come out of your brain, right? Creating a social post is something that you kind of can automate, but it's those other things like writing blog content and thinking about lead magnets that you really need that time to concentrate on. So we're trying to allow for more of that with our members.
The folks that listen to this podcast, they're business owners, entrepreneurs, and marketing directors. And then, my job is to kind of ask the questions that they would be thinking about to learn on this. So if I'm a business, what kind of businesses would really thrive taking advantage of a Pinterest model?
Well, e-commerce is huge, right? So especially this last year, there has been a huge increase in people interacting with the shopping surfaces on Pinterest. So if you're in e-commerce, absolutely it works. Bloggers have typically been a really big and strong presence on Pinterest as well because of that traffic driving ability. And now we're in a real interesting time with Pinterest, and we'll get into that. But they're changing a bit and opening up some more opportunities for kind of influencer marketing, brand partnership marketing. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and the key really is the way that you present your ideas. So no matter what industry you're in, it's surprising to some people that finance does really well on Pinterest.
Really?
Yeah, as does automotive. So it's kind of like, if you can find a way to make your idea or your product or your service appeal to people on Pinterest, then you can make Pinterest work. Pinterest is a real different sort of place. It's not a place to go and kind of curate this ideal life, right? Or this image of an ideal life, like we might do on Instagram. Like we all do it, right? We're not posting the mundane on Instagram. We're posting those exciting things that make us look and feel great. On Pinterest, it's more about what's inside, like what are our plans and our hopes, and what do we want to learn and do. So it's a very different focus. So when you're creating content for Pinterest, you really have to shift that mindset to think about, what do pinners want? They want inspiration and they want information. And it helps if it looks really nice too. So if you think about with a finance company, that might seem like an odd fit, but deep down, what does a bank or a lender do? Well, ideally for a family, they enable their best life, right? Maybe they're going to allow them to send their kid to college, or they're going to allow them to take a vacation or to retire. All those desires and wants and needs that people have are things that you can really highlight on Pinterest to draw attention to yourself, your service, your brand, your ideas.
So Pinterest started off maybe as a place where if I was going to build a house and I was thinking about decorating or furnishing the house, it might be a place that I go look for inspiration and ideas and start to categorize what my hopes or dreams would be for each room in a way. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. This is how people typically use Pinterest. And what's real interesting about it to me is that they tend to start planning much earlier on Pinterest than they would anywhere else, any other platform. In fact, searches on Pinterest. So one of the main ways people find content on Pinterest is through search. 97% of those searches are not branded. So people aren't usually looking for a specific brand. They're looking more for tips, ideas, inspiration, which is why Pinterest is a little bit of a wide open playing field for brands that haven't spent decades or millions on brand awareness. They can still be found on the platform.
So it's a discovery platform. When I think of a search platform, it means like I have a clear idea of what I want to learn. So I'm going to put in some parameters and hope that it sends me more clarification about that. Yeah. But on Pinterest, it's like I'm stumbling. It's that how we always joke. I went to the store and what'd you buy? Well, I bought a bunch of stuff I didn't know I wanted, right?
Yes, there is that Pinterest rabbit hole, but it is also a search engine, right? So it's a search and discovery platform where, yes, you will get served up what you asked for, but Pinterest also expands on that. They have an enormous amount of information about each of us. And so they'll kind of suggest things that are related, or maybe a step away, but still kind of related. It's an interesting thing to do, just to go in there and type in a search. You might not be able to tell by looking at it, like, oh, I don't see that keyword there, but there are things happening behind the scenes. Like Pinterest can see what's in each image. They can identify the objects in the image. They assign keywords to those. It's pretty complex, but really very cool.
So images, generally, if you want an image to show up in a search, you need to go and put a tag on what that image is about. But you're telling me that Pinterest has a way to actually discern better what's in that image and serve it up, even if you didn't put a deliberate tag?
Yes, that is true. Now, where this gets tricky is, say, a blogger or someone in finance. It's very hard to illustrate the concept of saving for college, right? So the other things you can do, you have titles on your pins. So you'd want to use your keywords there. There are descriptions on your pins. Use them there. Every pin goes to a board. So you want to use those keywords on your board. And you want to make sure that they're consistent with the keywords on your website, because they will crawl your content and make sure there's that consistency there. So I know a lot of times for bloggers too, it's, well, how do I show this concept? Well, maybe you can't, right? Maybe you're using, excuse me, a flat lay with text on it. But guess what? So is everybody else in your industry. So I think that like the difference is if you have a product, make sure that it's real clear in your image what your product is. If it's more of an idea, you're going to have to rely on some other signals like your text on your image, your title, your description, your board names.
So the audience on Pinterest, is it predominantly women?
It is. It is close to 70% women.
And they're like the major decision makers in most households.
That's right. That's right. Something very interesting happened on Pinterest this year, though. Well, the number of Gen Z pinners increased by 40%.
Wow.
So the Pinterest audience just got a whole lot younger. In fact, the largest audience on Pinterest right now is that 18 to 24 range. And the next one from that is just the group a little bit older than them. So it's had a lot of changes this year.
Is it because there's maybe some folks who are kind of getting worn out on Instagram, maybe getting tired of it, or they were looking for somewhere new to go?
Well, I think there's some of that. I think also with the pandemic happening, people wanted to try some do-it-yourself things. And Pinterest is fantastic for do-it-yourself. So learn how to sew, learn how to cook, learn how to do whatever project you want. And also they have been really careful to keep it a very positive platform. So you're not going to see politics on there or fake news or a lot of the things that are dividing people today that are real hard to get away from on other platforms.
Who owns Pinterest?
Who owns Pinterest? It is a publicly traded company.
So it's not associated with Facebook or any other?
Nope.
So when you say bloggers do really well on there, draw a picture for us. Like, what's a successful blogger? What's the model there? Help me see that, please.
Yeah. So again, it is changing. So we'll talk about the traditional first and how that method really worked well. And so that would be, let's say, all right, I have a friend. We'll just use a real example. You can actually look at her website and then look at her Pinterest account. It's catchmyparty.com.
Yeah.
So she also has a product that helps you build your followers on Pinterest, but catchmyparty.com gets a tremendous amount of traffic from Pinterest. So what she will do is she will write a blog post about how to plan such and such specific party. And then she'll create multiple images that go to this blog post. And then she just posts them and the traffic comes. It's pretty great, really. Now, what is changing on Pinterest was announced in October at an event that Pinterest held. And what they've said is traditionally we have connected people with the ideas that they want. And the shift this year is going to be to connect people or pinners with the creators of these ideas. So Pinterest has never been a social network. There have been a few little social elements, but this is signaling a pretty big change. And what it comes down to is that they want to have the content on Pinterest. So there's a new pin format called the idea pin. It used to, before 2 days ago, was called a story pin. And what that is like a multi-page pin. It could be video, it could be still images, though video does a lot better. And all the information you would need to complete a project or to learn an idea or to really get to know a product is all right in that pin. These pins do not link back to your website. And they don't want us adding links back to our website because they really want that content to be consumed on Pinterest. So then the question is, well, like, why would I do that if I don't get any traffic from Pinterest? Interestingly, it does really help build an engaged follower list. And Pinterest is working on ways to monetize these idea pins. So right now you can tag a brand in your idea pin. So this could lead to things like influencer deals or sponsored idea pins, things like that. It's not entirely clear what their plan is for monetization, but they know that this is something that they want to do and they will be doing in the future. But it doesn't look like those regular pins, like the static image and video pins, are going away. So it's going to be that combination of the traffic driving pins with these idea pins. And we're already seeing that the idea pins get so much more engagement. So people can save your pin, right? They'll see your pin and then they'll say, well, I want that on my board. And that's how your content really spreads across Pinterest. The more engagement you get, the more Pinterest distributes it, the more people see it. And those idea pins, we found at Tailwind, we did a study of 20 million pins sent out by our paid users. And we found that idea pins or story pins get 41 times the shares as a static pin or a video pin. Well, a static pin, and then I think it's a lot more than video pins too, but I only remember the 41 times the static image pin. So it's clear that that's what they want. They want that content and people are engaging with it. So we're in this kind of interesting time where people are trying to figure out, all right, what do I do next and what's going to work? But there's a lot of potential there.
So what kind of, what are your general clients that you work with at Tailwind? What category are they? Finance firms, law firms? I don't know. What would be?
Well, with Tailwind being a software as a service, we do know that a lot of our members are bloggers and a lot of them are e-commerce. Okay. So that's like kind of the top two segments, but bloggers of all kinds and retail of all kinds as well. Fashion is big, as it is on Pinterest in general, very popular.
Do you find authors taking advantage of the platform?
I have run across a few, but really not that many. No, I think you could. And I think that idea pins might be a really great way to do it because if you're going to invest in the time in reading a book, you probably want to know who this person is and what their ideas are and what their voice is like in writing should be similar to your speaking voice. Right. So yeah, I would highly recommend trying idea pins. Just talk through one concept of your book at a time and share that.
It's really interesting. So you're listening or watching, we're talking with Alisa Meredith. She's the Pinterest marketing specialist for Tailwind. They help brands excel on Pinterest. So Alisa, I have some questions I always want to ask. They're general questions and they're on people's mind. I get asked them sometimes. I don't always know the best answer. And that's why I love to ask them because I'm super interested in what your answers would be. So I guess give us an example of how to use Pinterest for business.
Okay. So give me a business.
So let's say you're an author and you have a book titled The Golden Toilet. That's a great
example. Right off the top of your head.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So I'm an author and my book is The Golden Toilet. So I am going to create a Pinterest account and I'm going to think about, okay, what boards do I need? The boards that I create are going to support the content I create. So do I have a blog?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. That's good news. So I'm going to look at my blog and the categories on my blog, and I'm going to create a board for each one of those categories. And then I'm going to start to create images for each of those blog posts. And if you've been blogging a while and you've never shared your content to Pinterest, I'm kind of jealous because you're sitting on a gold mine, right? You have all this work that you've done for years that can just go to Pinterest and will be brand new content to Pinterest possibly, which is a wonderful thing. So I would get all of those that backlog of blog posts onto Pinterest. Now I wouldn't do it all in one day. I would do probably 5 or so a day, every day. And then like we were talking about with the idea pins, you want to grow your account. Now, formerly followers really didn't matter at all on Pinterest. And it still is the case that even if you have 2 followers, your content will be found by far more people than just the ones who follow you. However, you do want to build your followers. It's going to become more important. And the best way to do that right now is with those idea pins. So
Okay.
I'm gonna use my phone because I don't know about everybody else, but I have the new idea pin editing on my phone. I don't have it on desktop. On desktop, it's not that easy. On your phone, it's pretty easy. You can just shoot your video, edit your video, add effects and text, and just go. It's really user friendly now. So I would do that. I would do that about once a week. Put up a new idea pin. They get tremendous distribution, and because not everybody's making them, this is a really good time to start. I'm a little bit addicted to to seeing those numbers come in and seeing actual comments on a pin, which, wow, it's been a long time since I saw a real comment on a pin, and people like reacting. They can add little hearts, and it's kind of nice to get some feedback on your work.
Wow. So how to make money on Pinterest?
Okay. So generally it's going to come from driving traffic, right? And so your static pins, your video pins can still drive traffic to your website. The other thing is that you're building awareness, and that's what story pins are really good for. So they come to know you, and then maybe they follow you on Pinterest, maybe they follow you on Instagram. I find personally that's what happens sometimes. I'll discover something brand new on Pinterest, and then if I want to get more of a backstory, I'll go to Instagram. Well, now with idea pins, you can get that backstory right on Pinterest too.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
Fascinating.
you'll have a link in your own profile. So as you're encouraging people to follow you, they may go to your profile and may check out your link there if they're interested in your products or services.
Okay. So I get this a lot. Is Pinterest social media? Now you said something earlier, but what's the answer and why?
The answer is it's becoming social. So originally, really, it was that search and discovery network. I called it the introverts network because there really wasn't that back and forth or that conversation going on. But now with idea pins, creators are getting out there. Like they're showing their faces, they're using their voices, and people are responding in a personal way. So I put a story pin out, and somebody that I know commented on it. It was a very different experience, and it was quite social. So I can't say anymore that Pinterest is not social media, because that's what they want to be. That's what they're becoming.
Wow. So how to get more followers on Pinterest? Now you said it used to be not that important.
Correct.
But people are asking. I guess we're all programmed to think followers are important.
Yes, and it's becoming more important. We talked about how Pinterest is looking into ways to monetize those idea pins. So having those followers. So if you tag a brand and they see that you have 1,000 followers, that's one reaction they're going to have. If you tag a brand and they see that you have 3.5 million followers, that may be when they contact you and say, hey, I want to pay you to do this influencer deal. So to get more followers, I sound like a broken record, but idea pins, because they're getting such tremendous distribution and because people are engaging with them, that is leading to more followers. The other thing you can do, and I know I mentioned Milo Tree before, she's a friend of mine. It is a plugin for your WordPress site, which will allow you to have like it's kind of a subtle slide up box that encourages people to follow you on Pinterest. You can use it for Instagram and email and something else too. But what I like about that is you're getting people who are already interested in and engaged with your content. So encouraging those people to follow you means that when they come over to Pinterest and they see your content, they're more likely to share it, to save it, which is important because Pinterest does look at that. So they send your content out to your followers first. They look for those signals, like, are your followers engaging? If they're not, like, if your followers aren't engaging, then who else will? And so they won't distribute it. But if you get a good reaction from your followers, your content tends to go further. So it's really attracting the right kind of follower. And I can give you a really bad example in myself. So like I said, I've been on Pinterest since the beginning, and I've used it as an experiment, which a lot of Pinterest marketers do. So our accounts tend to be a mess. First, I used it for personal. Then I said, oh, I'm going to do all business. So all my blog content would go there. And so people would engage with my blog content. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just combine it. I'll make it both. And then I started sharing or saving a lot of content about hair and recipes and like all kinds of random stuff. And then when my blog content came out, the stuff I really wanted people to see, nobody cared because I had attracted all those people who only wanted to see my hairpins and, recipe pins. And so Pinterest got the message loud and clear that, oh, this content must not be engaging at all because her followers don't like it. So don't do that. I wish I hadn't done that because I have a lot of followers, but still when I post content that I've worked hard on, that's important, I want people to see, it's still crickets.
So tell us maybe an unusual example of someone that you wouldn't expect that's really done well on Pinterest.
Let's see. Maybe, well, we had a guest on our Facebook Live last week, and she makes jewelry. She's a one-person show, and she makes jewelry out of recycled silver and gold.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you wouldn't think that just one little person who does not produce at volume, right? Everything is very kind of bespoke and original, but she does so well on Pinterest for her business that she actually has her own Facebook group teaching people to succeed on Pinterest as creators.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so as painters, decorators, like those creative types, she helps them do well on Pinterest.
I love that. That's excellent. So you're listening to, or you're watching us. You're watching us talk with Alisa Meredith. She's the Pinterest marketing specialist at Tailwind. Tell us a little bit about Tailwind, right quick. Just what we could expect out of it, the software, how we would apply it.
Yeah. So again, we're changing and there's new stuff coming out all the time. And it's really a great place to take care of all your social media automatically. So your Pinterest, your Instagram, your Facebook, it's all kind of centered around something we call Tailwind Create, which is just a ton of fun. Basically, you put in the URL you want to promote. That obviously only is essential for Pinterest. And then it will pull the images from that page for you. It will pull the title from that page for you. And then it will create literally hundreds and hundreds of designs for you to choose from. Wow. And it creates your Instagram feed post, your Instagram story, your Pinterest post, and your Facebook feed post all at the same time. So you never have to resize or move things around. It's all right there for you. And then it has your brand colors and your logo already there. You can change everything up you want to, but you don't have to. So when we just had it for Pinterest, we looked at how people were using the product, and we found that people were taking 1.8 minutes to make a Pinterest pin. And when we had asked, we do a lot of customer calls, member calls, testing calls, and people had said it was taking about 15 minutes in other programs to make a pin. So this is a way to make it much faster, and then you can just schedule it right in there. And again, Facebook scheduling is coming soon, and then it's all done.
Perfect. So Alisa, what's one question that you love to answer that often isn't asked, or I didn't ask you?
Oh, about Pinterest. I think you asked the really good ones. Is there anything else? I think the only thing we really didn't talk about a lot is Pinterest for e-commerce. So Pinterest would like to be a place that connects pinners and creators, but they're also heavily invested in shopping options. So you can add a pin on Pinterest and you can tag it so it will have your price and everything, Or if you have a shopping feed, like a Google shopping feed, you can hook that right up to Pinterest and it will make images for you. If you have Shopify, you can do something very similar, and then people can buy from you. Right. It will also come to your website, but it will allow you to sell more directly on Pinterest.
I'm curious if that would help with maybe someone is wanting to sell a course. A lot of creators now are wanting to do teaching courses or classes, or is there a way to take advantage of Pinterest in that respect?
It seems like because Pinterest is like really high up in that funnel, right? Like a lot of unbranded search when people come, if you look at the traffic you're getting from Pinterest, a lot of times it's first-time visitors. So it often will work to be a little bit more roundabout, right? So if you have a course, share your blog posts or create an idea pin and talk about your course, or talk about one thing someone could learn in your course and then have them come look for you. If you send them right to like a sales page for your course, that generally doesn't work very well because people don't know you, right? And they're looking for something actionable right this second. So if you can give them that first, and then you can get them on your email list, or I think that would be the best way.
That's excellent. Thanks, Alisa. So tell us where folks can reach out and get in contact with you or engage with you or hire you.
Okay. It's tailwindapp.com, and you can find me on the socials at Alisa M. Meredith on Twitter, Instagram. You can DM me. I love to get questions about Pinterest.
Oh, awesome. Well, you've been an awesome guest. I've learned a lot actually today, Alisa.
Oh, fun.
I appreciate it so much. And thank you for being on the ROI Online Podcast.
Welcome. My pleasure.
All right. And that's a wrap.
All right.